based former conservative. If you yourself are a former conservative, congratulations. Welcome to the dark side. And, hopefully we can get more of them, because it's the more people we can pull over, the better. I'm always accepting of former fascists, former conservatives, whatever your past is. If you want good things now, you are welcome here. Okay, so we hear it all the time. Why I left the left. Why I left the left. You know what we don't hear enough of? Why I left the right. I've already told my why I left the right story a couple of times. I grew up a conservative. I was born and raised a conservative Christian, right? I was pretty fervently a conservative Christian, especially in my teen years. I didn't think that global warming was real. I literally argued against it like for a 6th grade project. Like, it was really cringe. I thought that Glenn Beck was the bee's knees. I literally had a Glenn Beck book. And then I became a liberal, like in college, but I was still against abortion in college, but I was like kind of a liberal in that sense, where I was like, okay, I like progressive policies, but not that one, not abortion. Abortion was my big turnaround. So I got at the time, my girlfriend pregnant, and, I had a really bad, basically a mental break. And it was especially made worse by the fact that we broke up a few weeks later or maybe a few months later for other reasons. And that was like my turning point. I basically just like was wrought with guilt over this decision that we made together, because I helped her with the abortion. I was wrought with guilt over it, and I'm like, oh my God, like I did the thing that I'm not supposed to do, right? So I kind of learned the hard way, and that was really that, and then also my sister kind of dragging me into the leftist sphere. It's impressive how good Gunter is at speaking. Thank you. It's not that impressive, but thank you. I appreciate it nonetheless. So anyway, my point in all this is I am now a leftist, progressive, I usually call myself. I vote liberal. I advocate for progressive policies such as Medicare for all that good stuff. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is because we're going to watch somebody else who is a former conservative, who is actually an evangelical. I grew up Catholic. Now, she grew up evangelical, so it's going to be a little different. But she explains what changed her mind. So I want to take a look at this and now, mind you, I believe that Necosaurus, friend of the show, was also a evangelical. More or less grew up in a cult, if I understand correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's, like I always love hearing people's stories. So I'm going to hear her out and just kind of commentate over it. It's going to be a short one. So here we go.
I've had a few people ask this question of what triggered my shift in thinking when it came to the 2016 election, voting for Trump versus coming to see the light. Around that time, I had already begun seeing inconsistencies within the church, particularly when it came to how they viewed the LGBTQ plus community versus how they were handling like actual sexual predators and infidelity in the church. And there were a lot of inconsistencies and things that weren't making sense. So I definitely think I was at the beginning of my deconstruction era. However, I still voted for Trump. And
I will admit, I also voted for Trump in 2016. I was very much on the fence, but like I had heard, like I was the median voter basically. So I had heard about like Hillary Clinton and her email shit, and I just didn't like her vibes. It was a vibe check thing. It was literally vibes. And I voted against Hillary Clinton for Donald Trump. So for that, I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm part of the reason that Ohio went red. I'm so sorry. My bad. But I'm a changed man now. And I voted for Biden in 2020, and I will be voting for Kamala in 2024. So there we go.
A few days after he was elected and we started getting information on who he was going to be appointing into his administration, there were people that he was appointing that had very obvious ties to white supremacy organizations that had been very racist.
We forgive you, thank you.
And I remember going to a couple in my church who were huge Trump supporters and respected in the church.
And from experience with the best tactics to tilt people blue. So that will vary with the person that you're speaking to. In my opinion, the overwhelming majority of Americans like progressive policies such as increased minimum wage, Medicare, like free Medicare, right? Like free healthcare, things like that, things that appeal to the average person. And if they don't agree with those things, good luck. But like, let's say that that's the baseline, right? You're just dealing with like the average milquetoast, maybe even middle of the road conservative, right? The best thing to do is say, hey, these are the policies that like it's difficult because you don't want to bring up directly a political argument or anything. But if you're going to confront them and ask them like, hey, like the election's coming around, who are you voting for? And they're like, oh, I think I'm going to vote for Trump this time. Then you can be like, okay, well, let's talk talk, like I've tried this on my brother. Let's talk about this, right? Like, why are you voting for Trump? Do you know that Trump, do you know about Project 2025? Like, you know, the things that are in it, and they could be like, oh, you know, I've heard of it, blah, blah, blah. Basically what you're trying to get to is the progressive policies and really nail in that like conservatives, and you can even give examples. There's examples of like conservatives turning down basic lunch programs for children in schools. Like conservatives outright saying like children should have to pay for their lunches or else they go into lunch debt. Like there's literally examples of that. There's examples of, you know, way more examples of conservatives committing sexual crimes. That'll often help. Things like that. So that's really, it's hard to give advice unless it's like case by case. You know what I mean? Because I've tried on my dad and it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen with my dad. He's too dug in. So good luck with religious people and good luck with people who are pretty hardline in favor of Trump. It's very hard. Not impossible, but sometimes it's just better to focus your efforts elsewhere.
And I remember asking them about this, and I was like, he's appointing these people, and they have ties to like white supremacy. Like, what do you think about that? And I remember,
I do also want to point out, I did actually convert somebody one time from being transphobic to being pro-trans. And this was a very centrist person. It was at my old work. I did a lesson. It was a cringe lesson, I'll be honest. It was a cringe lesson about trans people. And like, you know, like I was in a room full of men who were like in their 40s and 50s. It was I was doing a lesson basically as a nurse for people who were detoxing from alcoholism and other drug use. Rehab. They usually call it rehab. Thank you, Alec. Finally got there. But anyway, I was doing a lesson about trans people and why like they need to like accept trans people in the workplace and like they can get fired for it and this and that. And then somebody came up to me afterwards and they were like, hey, listen, man, like I've got a kid who's got a friend who was born a girl, but now they're a boy, right? Like, I don't get it, right? So like, maybe I could, like, I told him, like, you can come up to me afterwards for more info. And I gave him research papers. I was like, here's the research on it. Here's like the studies that show transitioning is good for these kids. And he took it. And I didn't really expect anything to come of it, but he came back and he was like, hey man, I read over these papers and like, I don't completely get it, but it looks solid. It looks solid. Like I didn't know that all of this scientific research was out there that exists on trans people. So, you know, just thank you. And like, unfortunately, this trans friend of his daughter's was in kind of a bad situation and there wasn't a whole lot he could do. But I did say like, you know, do what you can, accommodate him when he comes over, but like don't get yourself into trouble, man. Just don't get yourself into trouble. Just do what you can. So that was kind of how I converted somebody from being a sort of a transphobe to trans accepting. So research can help if they're like intellectually minded, you know, if they're not like anti-science, sometimes scientific research helps, you know, things like that. I'm just speaking from experience. This isn't like gonna work for everybody all the time, but there you go.
They paused. They didn't deny the allegations. They didn't deny the fact that they had these ties, but they said, you know, I think we just really have to trust that God has a plan and that God's going to bring the right people into Trump's life to help lead the country. And immediately something clicked and I thought, they never gave Obama the benefit of the doubt. I never heard
true.
If they disagreed with anything Obama did, we just need to trust and or we need to pray for him. It was never that. If you remember, around that time, white evangelical Christians in particular, the majority of them actually really hated Obama. So we had
yeah, they were literally calling Obama Satan. There's still a meme going around that like not even a meme. It's like serious. People really believe that like Michelle Obama is a man, quote unquote, and which it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter even if she was. But like they're saying that like Michelle Obama's a man and Obama's gay and it's all a cover up and all this stuff. It's crazy. It's insane what some of these people believe. Yeah, Kat, that's Winry. Winry, don't chew on the rubber band. Stop it. Good girl. But once you're that far gone, I feel like there's really not a whole lot that can pull you back.
Spent the last 8 years with very racist,
she's sitting in front of me now,
Islamophobic rhetoric when it came to Obama and the presidency.
I will say the fact that she had her mind changed by that stuff is a sign that like I think that she just has a better sense of intuition and self-reflection than most conservatives have. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I feel like that she just has something that most people who are conservative or are raised conservative simply don't have. Being able to introspect like that and radically change your views because of the fact that the people around you aren't aligning with what you view as good, that takes a lot. Like, that's a big transformation. So I don't think that this is typical, but I do feel good for her. Like, I'm glad that she was able to do that for herself.
Going from seeing their deep, deep hatred for Obama to their deep, deep idolatry for Trump is what started to kind of open my eyes and be like, well, wait, they didn't do that for Obama. They weren't praying for Obama. They weren't, you know, trying to see the bright side for Obama. It was none of that. In fact, the narrative with Obama was that he was trying to make the United States
he was the Antichrist,
that he was actually a terrorist, that he was a secret Muslim, despite the fact that Obama
was
is
insane.
actually a self-professed Christian. And I'll never forget that moment, because that was the moment I think I literally within myself said, I think I made a mistake. And from there, I really started dedicating myself to listening, watching. It wasn't an overnight thing. I wasn't all of a sudden, I'm going to be more liberal. It definitely took a lot of deprogramming and researching other information that wasn't biased on either side. And that's really...
For me, it was when I really took the dive into conservatism, into socialism. It was because I was just curious. I was like, Kara, why are you a socialist? Because I had grown up learning all of these things about socialism and why it's bad. And I was like, well, I want to learn about socialism. Like, I want to approach it honestly and be like, okay, why is my sister a socialist? Why? And so it was really from there that, like, if you just question it on it, like if somebody's coming to you honestly and questioning it, like, okay, why are you a socialist? Like, I don't understand. Like, I grew up learning that socialism is bad and this and that. You can pull them over, you know? Like, sometimes all it takes is a little push. So just remember that.
Really hard to find that kind of information. That's truly just the very, very beginning. It's a long journey after that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a long, twisty, windy, turny journey for me. So that's great, though. So just remember, all hope is not lost for everybody. There are some lines that once you cross them, there's no coming back from it, I feel like. Like, if you're really, truly, there's rarely coming back from it. Let's say that. If you really are like deep into the MAGA hatred, or the MAGA hatred, the MAGA crowd, or like, let's say that you're QAnon, right? There's usually no coming back from that. Like, once you've lost rationality, that's it. I think my dad, and I love my dad for everything that he is, but I think that he's lost his sense of rationality in a lot of ways. So I don't think that, like, I could pull him out of that. But, you know, for those who do have that sense of rationality, you can appeal to that and say, like, don't you think that these basic rights are good? Don't you think it's good to help the poor? Don't you think it's good that people get Medicare or medical treatment at no price, at no cost? Don't you think it's good when people have roofs over their heads, right? Like, regardless of what their ability to pay is, you know? So appealing to rationality and also appealing to their sense of justice is a really good thing to do. So yeah, that's about all I have to say about it. Based former conservative. If you yourself are a former conservative, congratulations. Welcome to the dark side. And, you know, hopefully we can get more of them, because it's the more people we can pull over, the better. I'm always accepting of former fascists, former conservatives, whatever your past is. If you want good things now, you are welcome here. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more, hit the notification bell to be notified when I upload. If you enjoy my content, you enjoy what I do, I really appreciate any financial help that I can get. Go to youtube.com/AlecGunterTTV/join. You got some awesome benefits, such as seeing early videos, awesome emotes that you can use in the comments of YouTube videos, and a sweet badge next to your name. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'd really appreciate if you join. It is cheaper than the cost of a blowjob from your mom. So with all that being said, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.